Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Training Talk right here on Personal Defense Network. I'm Grant Cunningham, and in the next hour, we're going to explore how you can train and equip yourself to face the worst case scenario in your life. This is the show where we talk about you, about your life, and how to protect it. It's all about what you can do and what you can plan to do to keep you and your family safe. Now, on this show, we don't do politics or religion, so you're not going to hear any sort of fringe commentary or crazy conspiracy theories. Just good, reliable information that you can put to use right away. So, thank you for tuning in. And hey, would you do me a favor? Would you share the show on social media with all your friends and your families and coworkers and neighbors and all that kind of thing? Get on the Twitter and the Facebook and Reddit and Instagram and probably a whole bunch of ones that I've completely forgotten about. But share the show. We certainly appreciate it. And something, I'll bet they will too. I'll bet you they'll appreciate that you thought enough of them to bring them this terrific information that we put out. So thank you for that. And welcome. If you're tuning into the show for the first time, thank you for taking your time out of your busy life to spend it with us here to learn a little bit about self-protection and personal defense and home and family safety and all that kind of thing. And if you're a returning viewer, hey, thanks for coming back. I really do appreciate you coming back, and I hope you brought some friends with you too. So we've got a great show tonight. This is a show I've never had the opportunity to ask somebody about protection dogs, and that's what we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes. But stick around for that because it's going to be a great show. And I've got all kinds of, my head is just sort of bubbling over with questions that I've never had a chance to ask. So stick around for that. Evan Carson is going to be here to talk about dog training. And in the meantime, though, of course, we're in the middle of the spring training tour here at Personal Defense Network, and we've got about a month and a half now to go. The spring training tour ends in July, the end of July. So here we are, the middle of June. I'm really kind of surprised, by the way, to be saying it's the middle of June because it doesn't seem like it. Here in Oregon, as those of you who are regular viewers know, I live in the state of Oregon, and it's just been cold and wet and rainy on most of June. So everybody else in the country is having a spring. We're not having spring yet. So it just seems a little odd to say that we're in the middle of June because it sure doesn't feel like it. But here we are in the middle of June. The spring training tour is really still going strong out there. And in fact, what I want to do is I want to take a look at some of the classes that are coming up on the training tour in the next couple of weeks, because here's your chance to get some of these classes in under your belt. I'm just going to show you the screen here. I hope that you can see it because I'm going to present it to everybody here. Here we go. So here is what we've got coming up on the spring training tour here in the next, oh, holy cow, that didn't work, did it? Let's try that again. Oh, here we go. Let's try that. This is what happens when you do things live, folks. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that well. Oh, here we go. All right, now it's working. All right, so in the next couple of, like I said, we've got some courses that are coming up just this weekend that a lot of them are already full. But I want to point out one that's coming up in Central City, Iowa, with Rob Pincus on the 19th and 20th, and I realize this is short notice. But Central City, Iowa, armed defense around vehicles. This is a relatively new class for Rob. If you were on the last show with us, Rob talked a little bit about armed defense around vehicles. Cool course that he can't put on just everywhere because it requires a range where you can have a vehicle and you can shoot up a vehicle, and a lot of ranges don't allow that. So if you're anywhere near Central City, Iowa, get in on that. Like I said, that's the 19th and 20th. So you'll have to check and see if there are still any slots open that. I don't know if there are, but that's what it is. But coming up in the next couple of weeks. In Cabot, Arkansas, my buddy Alessandro Padovani, and Ale, he's been on the show before, is going to be doing his Extreme Close Quarters Tactics. That's a one-day course that teaches you what to do when you're within that 2 arms reach, that close quarters kind of stuff. Rob Pincus is going to be in Leadville, Colorado. And I think he said this was the highest elevation shooting range in the country in Leadville. It's one of his favorite places. He's going to be teaching combat focused shooting and advanced pistol handling. Then he's going to be in Gypsum, Colorado. I don't know where Gypsum, Colorado is, but he'll be there for a couple of days teaching combat focused carbine and 2-person armed defense. Now this is the course where you work together with a friend or a significant other, or someone else who is perhaps likely to be armed in an incident. Very good course, 2-person armed defense. Craig Douglas is good. Now, I'm going to mention this because you don't see very many classes up in Alaska. The folks up in Alaska kind of get short shrift a lot of times in the training world, but our contributor Craig Douglas is going to be up there in Valdez, Alaska, teaching his Extreme Close Quarter Concepts course, and that's the famous course that he does that deals with that grappling and that kind of thing. And then he's going to be teaching that same he's going to be teaching a law enforcement course in West Bloomfield, Michigan. Rob Pincus is going to be in Salt Lake City, Utah. And, I think this, I'm going to go out on a limb and I say, I think this is a new location for us this year. I don't remember anybody going to Salt Lake City before. It could have it just kind of slipped my mind. But in Salt Lake City, he's going to be teaching combat focused shooting. That's a 2-day course. In Reno, Nevada, on the 7th and 8th of July, Alessandro Padovani is going to be teaching his Safer, Faster Knife Fundamentals. And you've heard Ale talk about knife defense here on this show before. So he's going to be teaching his Safer, Faster Knife Fundamentals course. This is sort of his flagship course, one that he's known for in Reno. And then the next day on the 8th of July, he'll be teaching Women's Personal Protection Fundamentals. And then the 8th of July, Andrew Branca, attorney, is going to be teaching his Law of Self-Defense Level 1 class in North Highlands, California. And then again in Chico, California, the next day on the 9th of July. And then on the 9th of July, also Reno, Nevada, Alessandro Padovani is going to be teaching defensive focus shooting there. Rob Pincus goes to Boulder City, Nevada for a couple of days to teach advanced pistol handling, and then into Exeter, California to teach his one-day combat focused carbine class. And, oddly enough, the folks in California, a huge population there, biggest gun-owning population in the United States numerically, and for some reason they just don't get a lot of courses down there a lot of times. But Rob Pincus is going to be there in Exeter teaching combat-focused carbine. And then finally, Craig Douglas is going to be in Briggsdale, Colorado, again teaching his Extreme Close Quarters Concepts course. So that's what's going on in the next few weeks on the training tour. And again, we're kind of getting down to the end of it there. We've got a number of courses still coming up, though, and ending in Maple Falls, Washington at the end of July. So check those out at the Personal Defense Network. If you go to training, you can go to tour dates and locations, and that's where you get this calendar. So check that out. Lots of good courses still coming up. So there we go. Anyway, get out, train this spring. Lots of good weather in most of the country, except here in Oregon. But get out and train. Lots of good courses coming up for you to take advantage of. I want to talk for just a second here about the Personal Defense Network newsletter. If you're not signed up for it, if you anywhere on the Personal Defense Network site, there are places you can sign up for the free newsletter. And if you're watching this on the show page, there's a link down at the bottom where you can click and put in your email address, and it will set you up for the weekly newsletter. And that's where we put in all of the new videos that come out, the new articles that come out, new stuff on the blog, announcements about the show. That's always good. And of course, announcements about Rob Pincus's live Q&A shows that he does once a month. So sign up for that. Join the literally hundreds of thousands of other people that get that every week in their inbox. Authoritative, vetted information that you can use, and it's a terrific resource. In fact, I use it. In fact, that's how I found out about the article that tonight's guest wrote. We'll get into that in a minute, but that's how I found out about it, because I don't have time to constantly prowl the PDN site either. And the newsletter gives me up-to-date information and alerts me to these cool things that we've put up. So be sure and sign up for that. And that being said, I want to get right into our special guest tonight, because like I said, I saw on the Personal Defense Network newsletter that he had written an article on dogs as self-defense tools. And I had no idea that Evan knew anything about dogs. And it was a surprise to find out that, yes, he does. He actually owns a canine training company, OffLeash Canine Training. And so as soon as I saw that, I said, oh my God, I've got to have him on the show because I've got a lot of questions to ask. Evan is also a firearms instructor at, he's got his own company at Innovative Defensive Solutions. I have to make sure that I said that correctly, because I want to say Innovative Defense Solutions, but it's innovativedefensivesolutions.com. And he's a firearms instructor of great accomplishment, as well as owning Off-Leash Canine Training. So I'm just incredibly happy to have him on the show. Evan, welcome to Training Talk.
Hey, Grant, thanks for having me.
Great. I'm glad you could make it. I'm going to have you speak up just a little bit. I'm going to turn your volume up here just a tad. There we go. I think that'll be better. Anyway, so thank you for coming on the show tonight and talking to us about dogs. But in the meantime,
I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad that, like I said, I think I told you before, I have never had the chance to really sit down and talk to anybody about the use of dogs. I talk to people all the time. I tell them, listen, if nothing else, get a dog as an alert device, if nothing else, but we can go beyond that. So tell me a little bit about your background in training and at Innovative Defensive Solutions and at Off-Leash Canine.
Okay, so Innovative Defensive Solutions, we started that back in around 2004. Originally, we did a lot of private lessons, a lot of private courses, whereas the last 5 years, our focus has really been on defensive handgun training, both for people that are interested in concealed carry and for those that are staging guns in the home. So we do a home defense course, which is where the article that we're going to discuss tonight kind of comes in, because I think a lot of people that have dogs for companions just assume that their dog's going to, rise to that level of occasion, when in reality they're probably not. So we can get more into that later. First off, I'm a student foremost. I love training. I love teaching. I love passing on information. Really our focus at Innovative Defensive Solutions is for those interested in personal defense. So kind of our three core classes that we do a 2-day defensive handgun course. We do a 1-day fundamentals of home defense handguns course, which is for beginners or maybe people that were into firearms recreationally, but had never really thought about staging guns in the home for personal defense. And then we do a 1-day fundamentals defensive carry course for people that are planning on getting a permit and going out in public with a gun. As far as off-leash canine training, that's something that I got into around 2011. I had an incident with one of my dogs. I'm a huge dog lover. I've had dogs my whole life. Been to the PetSmart, the Petco, the neighborhood, parks where they do the group training, and, you stand in a circle with 10 other dog owners and the dogs just sit there and bark at each other. You don't get anything done. So anyway, back in 2011, I guess I should tell you a little bit about my dogs. So I've got he's 8 now, 120-pound Dogo Argentino. Looks like a giant. For those that don't know, looks like a giant mastiff, kind of like a Cane Corso, but he's solid white. They were bred to hunt boar and puma. And then I had at the time a English Springer Spaniel. So the Dogo is very, mean looking for people that don't like dogs, but he's a sweetheart. And not great with other dogs outside the home, or new dogs to him that, come and visit. So anyway, long story short, he went after another dog. Thankfully, there were no issues. So around that time, I started looking into obedience training, and I ran into a local company that started here in the Northern Virginia area called OffLeash Canine Training, and they specialized in off-leash obedience, and they would do it so quick. I'm trying to remember kind of my mindset back in 2011. I remember watching the videos and just thinking, there's no way they can do that with my dog. This video just must be a special case. And then I'd watch another video, and then I'd watch another video, and it was just amazing the results that they were getting. So he was only about 20 minutes from me. So I ended up signing up, registering for a 4-lesson basic obedience package. And, I really enjoyed it. Kind of the setup was, it was 1 lesson every week for 4 weeks. And then in between the 1-hour private lessons that you had in Woodbridge, you'd go home and you'd work the commands, whatever you learned that week, with your dog. So you were bonding with your dog. You're outside off leash. And I just found out it was something that I really enjoyed, and it was fun. And, my dog enjoyed it as well. So then I ended up taking my other dog, and then I started doing some advanced lessons. I never did get to the trainer level, but fast forward 8 years, or I guess, no, 7 years, and there are now 113 off-leash canine training locations in the world. Most in the U.S., 1 in London. The newest ones are Detroit, 1 in California somewhere, I can't remember exactly where, and then my location, because I actually basically franchised the location in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. So though I'm not a trainer, I will be going into the training program at some point when my time allows. But I have trainers that work for me in the Lehigh Valley area, and then of course I'm in Northern Virginia, so they're about 4 hours from me.
Okay. So I guess I want to start with something you just mentioned. And it's on my list of questions that I want to ask. And that is, I know a lot of people who have dogs, they'll have a lab or a German Shepherd or something, whatever it happens to be. And everybody says, oh, my dog is so loyal to me that I just know that if anybody ever attacks me, that dog will go on the counterattack and protect me. And I just kind of laugh at that because I know that's just not the case. But let's talk about it. Let's get that out in the open right now. What about that?
So it's interesting, because when I was one of those people. When I took Capone, my Dogo, to Nick at OffLeash Canine Training in Woodbridge, about 2 lessons in, when I saw the results, I was looking at his website and looking at the protection work that he did with his own dog Duke and some of the other Belgian Mals and German Shepherds, and I said, I want Capone to be able to do that, right? That would be awesome. And I talk about it in the article, but essentially there's a very, very small percentage. First off, if we look at like law enforcement, military dogs, or even private security type dogs, people are paying high dollar for these dogs. They go through a lot of training. The handlers go through a lot of training. And even breeders that only breed for, those 3-letter agencies and law enforcement, even out of that pool of dogs, there's a very tiny percentage of dogs that make it through the selection process. And that comes down to, from, again, my understanding of it, that comes down basically to confidence and how early you can get to the dog. First off, the dog has to have it. You can't, there's some things that you just can't train to get the dog to that level of protection work. And then, starting at 8 weeks old, you have to socialize the dog. You have to desensitize the dog. You have to build confidence in the dog so that if, they're actually needed and they latch down on someone's arm, they're not just going to, run off and cower. So going back to that conversation I was having with Nick, he said, getting Capone to bite or any dog to bite is not the problem. He said, I can train any dog to do that. He said, but when your dog latches down on someone's arm and that person is not a willing participant in this game that your dog's playing, and they wind back and, let's say punch him in his head, what is he going to do? And, that kind of put things in perspective for a minute. I started kind of thinking about, okay, all right, it kind of makes sense. At the time, Capone was about 1.5 years. So did he have the right traits to be able to be a protection dog? It's possible, but I waited. It was my fault because I didn't know at the time. Waited too long to start that confidence building process. And he's not a dog that cowers. He is, from a companion point of view, if you meet him, you interact with him, he seems like a very confident dog. But we're talking about an extreme level of confidence. For those of you that haven't read the article, if you go to the Personal Defense Network recent articles tab and click on the article, there's a picture there, and you'll see a Belgian Mal hanging from the bite suit that I'm wearing, which was actually at the Off-Leash Canine Training location. One of the big misconceptions is that, dogs like that are mean. Oh, I don't want to be anywhere. Even dog owners, right? Other dog owners think, oh, I wouldn't want to be around that dog. That dog's got to be so mean. But the funny thing is, right after that photo shoot where that picture was taken, Duke, the dog's name is actually, that wasn't Duke. I'm sorry. That was Gary's dog, but neither here nor there. They're both Belgian Mals that are protection trained. That dog laid down right next to me and was licking my face for a different photo shoot. So, those dogs are not mean and aggressive in nature. They are trained. It's a game to them. They are following commands from their owner, their handler, their trainer to do a specific task, working towards whatever their motivation is. And for a lot of Belgian Mals, that's a toy, it's a ball. So, and it's funny because they use that drive, right? Some dogs have play drive, some dogs have prey drive, some dogs are food motivated. They use that drive against the dog. So they'll take that, that ball, and as soon as they give the command for the dog to release, that you'll see the dog a lot of times sit down, especially when they're doing scent work. And it depends on the situation, the type of training they're doing, but then you'll see the ball come out and they go crazy. They grab the ball. It's awesome. They're wagging their tail. If you look in that picture, you can actually see the dog kind of smiling. He's enjoying it. It's a game. It's no different than you going in your backyard and throwing a stick to your dog. And one other thing too that's kind of interesting. When I was having that conversation with Nick, he said, I bet you have a basket in your living room full of dog toys. And I said, I do. Most dog owners do, right? And he said, well, I don't. And most dogs that are being worked for that have that level of confidence and motivation and play drive, having toys out that the dogs can access whenever they want actually deters that play drive, because there is no drive to work towards a ball or towards a toy because it's always out. So that's another way you can kind of kill that drive early on with a puppy is like having an assortment of toys laying around. Most of these dogs have one toy, a ball, whatever it is, and they are always working towards getting that one toy. And then they'll let the dog play with it for a little bit, and before the dog gets bored of it, they take it away so that they can go right back to work and, again, use that play drive motivation against the dog, right?
So before we get into this, let's kind of get everybody sort of on the same page. When when we talk about sort of levels of training, and we're talking specifically in terms of security and self-defense, there's sort of a base level, which is just basic obedience trained. These are dogs that are companions and are basically going to serve as early warning devices. They're going to bark if something's wrong. So going up from there, what are the sort of levels, and what will each level do?
Each level, well, as far as, I mean, I kind of have a narrow view on that. Like I said, I'm not a dog trainer, so I'll give you my perspective. A lot of time, well, I'll give you an analogy, right? A lot of people come to different off-leash canine training locations for aggressive behavior modification, things like that. And they're surprised when they hear that those 8-lesson packages start with the same 4 lessons that we do for any other dog, which is basic obedience. Because without that, fundamental baseline obedience, it's really hard to work on the dog's triggers, whatever triggers a dog, whether it's food, motivation, or it could be a lack of socialization. Maybe they're aggressive towards other dogs. It's hard to work on those things unless you have that fundamental baseline of obedience. So that's the first thing that we would do, would be a sit down, come, place, leave it, off, those kind of standard commands. Once we have that, then we would start working on whatever issues the dog has, which a lot of times isn't really pure aggression. A lot of times it's fear-based, or, like I said, a lack of socialization, which causes these other issues. As far as protection training, I can't speak to that. I've never been a part of putting a dog through that program, but I know it's a very long process. It can take thousands of hours. That's why these dogs are so expensive. The obedience is fairly easy to work on with dogs very, very quickly, but the protection work can take a long time.
So there's a big jump there between the obedience training and protection dog training, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's like I was saying earlier, if you plan on getting a protection dog, and you're not just going to go out and pay someone that's already done the training, put in the work, put in the time, and you're actually going to harness this from a young age, you're literally researching breeders. Hopefully you're looking for a breeder that specializes in that. Like one of our trainers, Stephanie O'Brien, that's what she does for law enforcement, military. She runs one of the off-leash canine training locations in California, one of the newer ones, but she's been a breeder for years, and that's exactly what she does. She knows how to raise these dogs properly so they have the right motivation, confidence, and drive to go on and become a protection dog. So it literally starts when the dog's born, and probably no later than 6 weeks, 8 weeks old.
Are some breeds more because you talked about only a small percentage of the dogs actually end up qualifying for that level of training. Are there in fact some breeds that are better at it or have a higher percentage of successes than others?
I don't know what the raw statistics are in that. I know you see a lot of Belgian Mals and German Shepherd or Dutch Shepherd type dogs in that field, and that, I believe, that comes down to the play drive, because those dogs they have a lot of drive to play, which again, they use that in the training. You'll hear any from my opinion, any trainer worth their weight as far as dogs go will tell you, because there's tons of people that they see a picture like that's in the PDN article and they say, oh, I want one of those dogs. But in reality, they don't necessarily have the time or the resources to put a dog through that type of training, nor do they have the time to go out with a dog like that daily and give the dog as much exercise as it needs. Belgian Mals are not the best companion dogs. They can be a pain in the butt, right? Because they have so much drive. So if you're not exercising that drive, if you're not giving them enough, physical and mental exercise, they're probably going to turn into, you're probably going to start seeing behavior issues surface, like destructive behavior, destroying things in the home. They need to be worked. A lot of dogs need a purpose, right? Other than just laying in the living room chewing on their toy. They need to go out and be run. A lot of these trainers have treadmills. Now you're starting to see companies come out with treadmills specifically for dogs, so that they can actually wear their dogs out, because they physically don't have the time or the capacity to work their dog that much every day.
So when we're talking about this, it's not necessarily looking for an aggressive dog. It's more activity. It's more as you call it, drive. So it's not really aggression they're looking for. They're looking for that very almost hyperactive sort of activity level, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not aggression at all. Like I was saying before, if you watch dogs that are properly trained in protection work, they are wagging their tail while they're while that dog was latched onto my bite suit, and I was actually spinning in that picture. I was spinning around to get the dog to kind of raise up to take some good pictures. He was happy as can be. I mean, he was so happy. He was wagging his tail. And if you watch when they start doing the training, when the dogs start, maybe they're just working a bite sleeve in the beginning, they're actually rubbing their head because they don't want the dog to be stressed out. They don't want the dog's anxiety levels to go up. They don't want any anxiety. They want the dog to be relaxed and confident, so they can focus on their task.
You were talking about the dogs getting trained in, and it almost sounds as if the owners need to be trained as well. You were talking about taking the dog out and working with them on a daily basis and that sort of thing. So it's not just this is not a dog you go buy and then just sort of sit it out there and let it take care of itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so to kind of talk more about that, let's go back and talk about the basic obedience for a minute. So that was one of the things when I first went to off-leash canine training with Capone. When I walked in there, it seemed so simple. Like half an hour in, I'm like, man, this is simple. Why didn't I figure this out? Most of it came down to once the dog understood what the trainer was asking him to do, and he could, Capone, sit, and then he would sit down. Once the dog figured that out, and off-leash canine training, we use e-collars, which so talk about that for a second. All the top dogs in the world, field trials, law enforcement, military, canines, they use e-collars to do the training. And when they're used properly, it's probably one of the best dog training tools that exists. It's not a method, it's a tool. It's a communication device. Pair that with clear communication and marker type training. It can really make a dog and an owner team work really, really well together. So once the dog, or in my example, once Capone understood how to sit or down or come or place, as long as I was doing everything properly and he understood it, again, those clear communication lines, it was very, very simple. So like I was saying before, each lesson was 7 days apart. I think after the second lesson, so we were about 15 days in, or no, I'm sorry, that would have been after the second lesson was 8 days in. It was either the 8th or the 15th day we were off leash healing. No, I'm sorry, not off leash healing. We were off leash sitting and downing in fields with other animals and other dogs. And if you remember, the whole reason I took him there is because he went after another dog. So to be able to do that in 2 1-hour lessons and then me working with him for 1 hour a day, it's pretty impressive. So to kind of talk more about what you brought up, a lot of it comes down to issues that are created by the owner or the handler. But for companion type pets and people, the average person that has a dog in the home that calls a trainer or researches something on the internet or gets a dog 101 book, most of the issues are created by us, by people.
Okay. Let's talk for a minute about, and I suppose we should sort of bring this specifically to our interest. What kinds of jobs in terms of sort of home and family security and self-defense, what are the kinds of things that a person could expect say an advanced obedience trained dog to do for them, to enhance their safety, to help them lead a safer life? What are the kinds of jobs that you can expect the dog to do?
So if we're talking about like what I was talking about in the article, like an imminent home invasion, I wouldn't expect my dogs to do anything. The only parts of the training, the obedience training that my dogs went through that I'm relying on really is the recall. If, for example, we're not asleep, because in my case, what I do with my dogs aren't on the middle floor. They're on the top floor. Most of the time they're in the master bedroom. And if they're not in the bedroom, there's a kitty gate up, because I've got small kids, so they can't go downstairs. They don't have free reign of the house. And part of that is because it plays right into my home defense plan. I don't want them to have free reign of the house, because I know if somebody comes in the house, they may bark, they may make noise, they may be an alert system, but they can do that from the bedroom. But I don't want them to get hurt. I don't want responding police officers to have to deal with dogs when they're there to try to find a bad criminal actor that's broken in my house. So from an obedience standpoint, what I'd be relying on is the recall. If they were loose outside of the house and they weren't on the top floor of the house. So really it's to keep them safe, not necessarily to keep me and my family safe.
So the dogs are serving as, say, early warning and intimidation. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, absolutely. And so one other aspect of that, so it kind of depends on where you live, right? My house, I'm on an 1 acre and a quarter wooded lot. Most of that acre is fenced in with a privacy fence, 6 foot. There's a dog door in my mudroom in the back of the house. So when we're not home, they only have they're not locked in the house. They only have access to the mudroom. They can get out onto the deck through the dog door, and they can roam the yard. So that, when we're not home, is a very, very good deterrent, right? Because a lot of people aren't going to come to the house when they see this giant, mastiff looking dog with big old cropped ears looking at them through the fence. And also that early warning detection. People come near the house, people come near the yard, they bark, they make noise, and a lot of times that's good enough. Sometimes it isn't, but a lot of times it is.
I want you to talk, and you sort of touched upon this a little earlier, and I think you touched upon this in the article too. The idea that if you have a dog that's going to serve any defensive role, that if that dog's going to respond to any intruder the same way, even if it's a police officer. And if that happens, the police officer is going to feel a need to protect himself, and he has the means and the legal authority to do so. And I think, that's kind of an eye-opener for me, because I think a lot of people, especially if they've got a dog that's maybe a little more aggressive than it really should be, don't really take that into account. Can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely, because that's kind of one of the main reasons I wrote this article. Every time we do our home defense handguns class, this question comes up at least once during the course, because during that course we help the students come up with a home defense plan. We look at their floor plan, assuming they're home and there's a home invasion and they can't exit the house, or maybe they're on one level of the house and there's family members on another, and they're in charge of that person's safety. Maybe it's a child or an elder person, and they need to act, they need to get to them to protect them, and they can't leave the house. What do you do, right? So during that plan, dogs always come up. What do you do with the dogs? So there's kind of two parts to this this answer. A lot of people think, and we've kind of touched on it already, that their dog, oh yeah, like you said, my dog's, if a stranger comes in the house, my dog would probably bite them. So in their mind, they're thinking, okay, well, this is my defensive, my defensive tool. And while that may be true, they may bite out of fear because it's a stranger, and there's a lot of different reasons why an untrained, non-protective dog would bite someone. So we won't get into those specific issues, but let's say they did. What are they going to do when that guy fights back? Probably nothing. They're probably going to run away, because what made that dog bite in the first place was a fear, right? They lacked confidence, and they got scared. So I wouldn't rely on a companion dog to be, to provide any actual physical protection at all. So let's say you're in your home, and someone breaks in. Let's just give them an example. We use my example for example. 3-level house, entries made on the middle level, and all the bedrooms are on the top floor of this house. So let's say you have a couple kids. I've got a couple kids. There's kids across the hallway in 2 separate bedrooms, and you and your significant other are in your bedroom, and the dogs are upstairs with you. Let's say they're in your bedroom. Somebody breaks into the house, and you don't have a means of exit from that top floor. In my case, there's one stairwell going to the top floor of the house. There's no way. Right at the bottom of the stairs is the front door. So in that situation, I would be, getting to my family, getting to my quick access storage to get my gun. I would be locking the dogs up, and we'll come back and talk about this in a second. I'd be locking the dogs up in my bathroom, and my wife, and this is all part of our plan, my wife would be going across the hallway to get our youngest daughter, and then going into our oldest daughter's room. And then as soon as I have the dogs locked up, I'm going through that hallway across into our barricade location. We're shutting the door, locking it. We've got staged cell phones in there, and then we can make a 911 call. So if in my example, let's flip it a little bit. Let's say I didn't lock the dogs up and they could make it downstairs. One of the 2 of my dogs, for sure, if they heard anyone downstairs, any noise, would go running right down there. So if for whatever reason the bad guys or bad guy didn't leave, he could hurt my dog, right? So I don't want that to happen, number one. Let's say he didn't get downstairs right away. We've made a 911 call. Now we have responding officers coming in the house. Again, stranger coming near the house, my dog's gonna bark. He barks at anyone that comes to the house, even people he knows, he barks. And once you get close, if he knows you, he licks you, and he's wagging his tail and he's quiet. So now you have a responding officer coming into the house because you've just made a call that you have a home invasion, somebody kicked down your door, whatever the case may be. Your family's barricaded upstairs. Your companion pet's loose downstairs, and he sees this person running towards, walking, running, whatever, towards your door, possibly a gun out, possibly a flashlight out. There's commotion going on, and your dog is barking at this law enforcement officer. And what I said in the article is, I said, put yourself in this officer's shoes. At that moment, in that moment, when that officer is coming through the door and he's looking for these bad people that are loose in your house, do you think he is worried about your dog's safety or his own safety? In that moment, he's more worried about his safety, and I would be as well, even as a huge dog lover that I am. So he doesn't have time to sit there and figure out, pull out, go back to his car, get some treats out, and try to lure this dog out of the doorway, out of a room, whatever. So a lot of SOPs out there, and not in all jurisdictions, but a lot of jurisdictions, you hear about it all the time, state that if the officer feels that his life or his safety is in danger, he can shoot the dog. So that's why in my plan, I'm not going to let the dogs have free reign of the house, especially, at night when everyone's going to bed. The dogs are in the room. Now in this case, we have a new rescue. She's in a crate. Capone's the only one that's loose, and the doors are shut. So he can't get out. And I don't have to worry about that possibility if we need to make a 911 call. I know he can be. There's still a chance that he could, have an encounter with the bad guy, because if you read the article in my example, what I'm doing, rather than trying to move through the hallway with my dog, which I could do, he's off-leash trained. I could heel him right across the hallway, but that's going to take some time, right? So in my example, I have like a Jack and Jill bathroom. So the doorway that accesses, or that you would use to gain access to that upstairs bathroom, there's only one. If it's open, I shut it. If it's closed, I lock it. And he's going into that bathroom from the master bedroom access point, and then I can shut that door, and then I can make my way across the hallway where the rest of my family is.
You mentioned that earlier. In fact, that brought up a question very quickly. Why would you lock the dog in the bathroom rather than keeping him in the safe room with you?
Well, it's all going to depend on your layout, right? That might not be my example for everyone, but in my specific example, I don't want to try to heel him or grab him by the collar and go across the hallway, just from a time perspective. Also, let's say we're in that room. I've got two small kids. It's hard to keep kids quiet, especially in the middle of the night. You've woken up, you've grabbed one of them out of bed, you run in the room, and you're trying to, in the room that we would barricade in order to get 90 degrees offline from the point of entry of the room, which is what we recommend in our home defense course. We'd be grabbing my oldest daughter out of bed and then going into the corner of the room. So imagine trying to do all that. And by the way, I've got a gun in my hand. I've probably got a cell phone in the other hand. My wife has two kids and a cell phone. There's just too much going on. And then once we get into that room, right, I've got to put him in a sit or a down. Now, God forbid they try to make access into that barricaded room before law enforcement gets there. Now I'm trying to control him. I've got a gun in my hand and my family's behind me. It's just too much going on. Right. So I think from a time perspective, it's quicker and more efficient to get him into the bathroom, lock the door. Now my hands are free. I can go across the hallway. Okay.
That makes sense. It was just something I kind of wondered about. And now when you describe it, I'd lock him in the bathroom too. So the one of the questions that I had is, so we're talking about, at this level, we're talking about a companion animal that's obedience trained, that serves as an early warning device and intimidation. And that's where we're sort of capping his or her activities. Is it necessary to have a purebred dog to do that?
Oh, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I've had plenty of different dogs, different breeds, mutts, whatever you want to call it. I've had dogs literally my entire life. I think I'm on number 8 or 9, something like that. And most of my family has had dogs. And honestly, some of the best dogs with the least issues, both from a veterinary standpoint and just from a general owner standpoint, have been the mutts. All of my purebred dogs have had issues. Capone, for example, something you never hear about dogos, they have very brittle, super brittle nails that if you don't trim them every 5 days, we've got an old deck on the back of the house that dog door comes out onto. And, when he's chasing a squirrel or something, he goes running across the deck. If that nail catches a corner wrong on the deck, it will shatter and go all the way up into his cuticle. It happens 3 times a year. And you know, that's not a purebred thing, but I'm just throwing out an example with our Springer Spaniel. You know, Springers have horrible ear issues, horrible separation anxiety, which, you know, the separation anxiety, you can work on that. You know, a good trainer can work on that, but it's still a trait that you see in a lot of Springers. The latest dog we have, a rescue. She's a pit bull, beagle, possibly bulldog. She's got some kind of bulldog in her, and healthy as can be. I see you thinking, well, what does that dog look like? She's the size of a beagle, but looks like a pit bull, but has the underbite of a bulldog and breathes like a bulldog. So it's pretty funny.
That's a mutt.
What's that?
That is a mutt.
Yeah, that's a mutt. Yeah, and we're gonna have a DNA test done because everyone in the family's got bets on what she has in her. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it matters. I think it comes back to, you know, training and how you raise the dog. But like I said, some of the purebred dogs have you know, genetic issues that were handed down through their bloodlines. So
I guess I'll ask kind of a hot button question then, since you kind of brought it up already. Pit bulls. I mean, you know, a lot of people, a lot of municipalities have outright banned them now. Tell me about pit bulls.
I love them. They're some of the best dogs that are out there. I don't think there's any breed that has a you know, a specific behavioral issue that I'm going to, you know, point at the breed being the issue. I've had plenty of been around tons and tons and tons of pit bulls or Staffordshire Terriers or any kind of pit bull terrier mixes and mutts, just like mine. Matter of fact, she's a perfect example. She was a rescue. She was found on the side of the road in South Carolina, pregnant with 10 pups. Nobody knows. Yeah, and she's tiny. She's only like 35 pounds. She actually, I think it was 11 pups. So if you see her pictures on social media, you'll see her belly is like hanging down low, and it probably will never suck back in because she had a lot of puppies. But she's one of the most tolerant dogs I have ever been around. Loves everybody. Loves every living thing. Well, I don't want to say loves everything. She hunts turtles. She hunts squirrels. She hunts birds. But people, dogs, just an amazing all-around great dog, and very, very, very tolerant. Especially coming into a house with a 2-year-old and a 4.5-year-old that, you know, don't know when to be quiet, like to tug on animals' ears and tails and everything else. And of course, they're not all like that, but neither is any other breed. But my experience with pit bulls, they are amazing dogs. They're lovable. They want to work. They want to have a purpose. They want to please their owners.
I think that I'm glad you said that, because I find the current dislike of pit bulls to be very, you know, everybody's worried about pit bulls, how aggressive they are. And this is the perspective that age gives you, because I can remember back in the early 70s when the demon dog was the Doberman Pinscher. In fact, there was a movie made about how aggressive Dobermans were, and it was called They Only Kill Their Masters. And this was like 1972, 1973, something like that. And I can remember this movie coming out, and everybody was talking about these aggressive Dobermans, and people shouldn't have Dobermans because they're obviously aggressive dogs. And there were you know, municipalities around the United States that outlawed Dobermans, and then, you know, a decade or so later it was Rottweilers, and there was a period of time when people thought of German Shepherds as being overly aggressive dogs. And so it just, for some reason, the pit bulls seem to be the hated breed of the week for whatever reason. So I'm glad you answered that, because I wanted to bring that up, especially just to show, the fact that I'm old and I remember a movie from the early 70s.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how the tide shifts in breeds. Like you said, if you look over the years, Dobermans, Rottweilers have played that part. It's unbelievable that you have these municipalities banning certain breeds, and it's gotten so ridiculous now. It doesn't even matter in some areas that if you have a DNA test, if it looks like a pit bull terrier and it is 5-10% terrier, they don't want anything to do with it. A lot of these HOAs now, when you move in, it's in the HOA contracts. If you rent condos, there's a list of breeds, not just pit bulls either. I mean, there's still Rottweilers on some lists. There's Mastiffs on some lists, Cane Corsos. I mean, it's insane. It does not make any sense to me.
That's the ultimate example of, if they were humans, we would call it prejudice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, like I said, when you mentioned that one of your dogs was a pit bull mix, I just had to bring that up, because that was a question that I know somebody would say, why didn't you ask him this? So tell us how people can get in touch with you, and learn about the things you do and the classes you teach and the services that your canine training company offers.
All right. So innovative-defensive-solutions.com is my defensive handgun and firearms training company website. The Off-Leash Canine Training, our website is LehighValleyDogTrainers.com. And then depending on what area you're in, if anywhere in the country, there's a trainer locator located on our main website, which is offleashcaninetraining.com. There's a menu up top. Click on trainer locator. You can type in your zip code or state and search. Again, there's 113 locations, so I'm sure there's a location near you. We do the basic obedience, basic and advanced, and there's 2-week board and train programs where you basically drop your dog off and pick a well-trained, behaved off-leash machine up. And then some of the locations do nose work and protection work. So if that's something you're interested in, once you go through the basic obedience, there's other things you can do. Most of the locations also do the good canine citizen, and also therapy dog, and some do service dog work as well. And then, of course, social media, Innovative Defensive Solutions on Facebook, @IDS Training on Instagram, and then Off-Leash Canine Trainings on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter as well.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for being available for the show tonight. I really appreciate you coming on, because this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I have 2 dogs of my own who serve in that role as well, and I know a lot of people are interested in it. A lot of people are looking for dogs as both companions and as a little bit of an adjunct to their safety preparations. So thank you for coming on. I do appreciate it.
Not a problem. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you again.
Sounds good.
All right, everybody. We've got just a minute or so left. I want to talk to you for just a second about premium membership here at Personal Defense Network. All of the great articles and videos that we have on the public side of Personal Defense Network, like the article that Evan wrote. But we also have the membership side of Personal Defense Network, where we put up all of the DVD length training videos and the video collections and all of the exclusive content that you can access to help you train and prepare and keep you and your family safe. Just incredible resources on the membership side. In fact, I've been a premium member since we started it, and I haven't seen everything that's there. And so I heartily encourage everybody to take a look at the premium membership side, because there's just a wealth of information. You almost can't believe what's there. Normally, premium membership is $39.95, and I get a lot of people maybe don't want to drop that kind of money to find out about it. So we've got a deal for you. because you're listening to the show, you can get your first year of full premium membership for only $10. So when you sign up for premium membership, get to the checkout area and put in this code GRANT10, G-R-A-N-T, the number 1, the number 0. You'll get your first year of premium membership here at Personal Defense Network for only $10. That's why the 10. GRANT10, G-R-A-N-T, the number 1, the number 0, all one word. Put that in when you check out for premium membership, and you'll get your first year for only $10. And that's, full premium membership. It's not limited or anything like that. We don't do that, but allow you to get in, look at what is available in premium membership, take some of the courses, look at the full videos and everything else we've got there. And it'll give you a chance to try it out without a huge outlay. So again, GRANT10, G-R-A-N-T, the number 1, the number 0, all one word. Check that out. Also, please do send me email, grant@grantcunningham.com. I'm always happy to get your emails, and sometimes I even answer some of your questions on air. So take advantage of that. Please send me those emails and join us for our next show, which is going to be July 6th, the first Thursday of July 6th at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here at Personal Defense Network. And we'll look forward to seeing you then. And until then, stay safe. Good night.